staff report, as Ms. Shevers has pointed out, suggests that I may have violated 3 separate provisions of Oregon ethics laws: the gift limit, handling potential conflicts, and then, of course, the prohibited use of official position of public office. And I'd like to just take a moment and touch on each of those very briefly. In terms of gift limits, as the report suggests, it would certainly be a violation of the gift limit to receive a United Airlines Premium, Premier, and Platinum upgrade, particularly if it was used. I will say, not as a matter of defense, but simply as a matter of fact, that I was unaware that I had received this gift. I'm not quite sure why it was bestowed upon me. I don't believe that I used it, but having said that, this does, I believe, constitute, and I do not contest the fact that this constitutes a violation of this provision of Oregon ethics laws. Concerning the proper method of handling potential conflicts, as I acknowledged in the draft stipulated order that I entered into with the staff in November, I did in fact acknowledge that there were instances in which I failed to properly disclose a potential conflict of interest. There's a few others that are identified in this report. I'd like to acknowledge again that those do represent a violation of this provision, and again, I regret not having made the proper disclosures that were required. This brings us to the issue of prohibited use of official position or office. And as you know, the staff report suggests that I may have violated 3 different provisions here, and I'd like to touch on those because I think this gets really to the heart of it. Excuse me. The first one has to do with the receipt of frequent flyer miles and state discounted travel. If in fact I received those miles and those discounts, and I have no reason to believe that I didn't, that would indeed represent a violation of this provision of the statute. Again, I will say only as a matter of context that the state travel agency is Azamano, and I've used that travel agency for years prior to the time that I was reelected in 2010. And to be honest, when I was governor, I didn't pay a lot of attention to the details of my travel arrangements, and in retrospect, I clearly should have taken a much more personal role in ensuring that the detail of those arrangements complied with the ethics statute regarding travel. So again, I regret that I didn't do that, and certainly acknowledge that this is a violation of Oregon ethics laws. The third one has to do with the so-called pet sitting charge. I guess I will just say as a matter of context that I've known Jan Murdoch for 15 years. She's the godmother of my only son. She undertook this activity voluntarily and on her own time, not the state time, but if in your judgment that violates Oregon ethics laws, I'm more than happy to be accountable for it and assume the consequences. That brings us to the third element, which is, and I do want to read this, although Marie did read it before, this issue of policy and provision of office of the governor resources. And the 3 aspects of this: one is that I provided Ms. Hayes with the opportunity to form and shape the policies of the administration in the areas of clean economy, ocean health, and GPI. That I instructed my staff that she needed to have a role in shaping those policies. And finally, that I gave her access to staffing resources of the office of the governor that she used for her paid work. This is the only element of this report that I do in fact dispute, and I want to explain why. Yes, I did make it clear that I did value the expertise and the knowledge and experience that Ms. Hayes had gained in the areas that she worked on for years. I also made it clear that I thought that that expertise and knowledge could be very valuable to advancing the policies of my administration, and as a result of those 2 things, she did in fact have access to my staff that she would not otherwise have had. What I vigorously dispute, however, is that any of this was done for the purpose of gaining a financial benefit or avoiding a financial detriment or for the benefit of our clients. As some of you may know, I take my policy pretty seriously. In fact, my relentless focus on policy detail has earned me the reputation with many of the folks behind me here as being somewhat aloof. By the time I met Sylvia, I had already served 14 years in the legislature, 8 as Senate President, and 8 years as governor. And my political views and policy positions were very well defined and were very mature. And I was already a longtime champion of the policies that most of these organizations supported. At no time, at no point did I ever ask anyone to hire Ms. Hayes, nor did I ever ask anyone to fund her work. And I never undertook a policy initiative or gave a speech or attended a meeting for the purpose of advancing a career. And that's the fact. There was never any intent on my part to use my position to enhance the financial benefit for either her or myself. Now, I don't offer this as an excuse for any areas of the ethics laws that I may have violated, but I mention it to you because for the 26 years of my life that I gave to public service in this state, the thing that has mattered most to me is my integrity and my respect for the offices which I have held. I spent decades in this state trying to make Oregon a better place. I had the opportunity to contribute to a number of policies of which I remain very proud. Reform of the workers' compensation system, more water for farmers and fish in eastern Oregon, our East Side Forest Health Collaboratives, the Oregon Plan for Salmon Watersheds, the Oregon Health Plan, the Oregon Children's Plan that I worked on in partnership with former Senator Starr in 2001, our coordinated care organizations that now provide quality, affordable health care to almost 1 million Oregonians, making our early childhood system a outcomes-based system, our early learning hubs, regional solutions teams, watershed councils, and of course, the Oregon Education Investment Board and a 10-year outcomes-based budget, the latter two of which have unfortunately, in my opinion, been abandoned. I have withstood the scrutiny of 8 elections, 4 of them statewide elections in 26 years in public office, and this is the first time that my integrity has ever been questioned. And to somehow arrive at the conclusion that after this long career in public office, I would suddenly discover a streak of corruption at the very end is simply not true. I don't believe that there's any evidence to support that. Now, I've made my share of mistakes. There's no question about it. But using my office for the purpose of financial gain is simply not one of them. And I would simply conclude by saying that I am more than happy. I am willing and ready to accept accountability for the mistakes that I did make, for not asking the Oregon Government Ethics Commission for a full opinion regarding Ms. Hayes' work with nonprofits before any contracts were signed, for delegating the responsibility to oversee this issue to my legal counsel, my chief of staff, and then simply not remaining personally engaged and informed about the details of her professional activities, which were ultimately my responsibility, and particularly for not providing a much clearer definition of her role in my administration as it related to her paid clients, which put my staff in a very difficult position. So for all of those things, I apologize. I apologize to my family. I apologize to my friends, because all of these things contributed to the turmoil of the last 3 years. I apologize to my former chief of staff and legal counsel and to the rest of my former gifted and dedicated staff. And most of all, I apologize to my fellow Oregonians. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make that brief statement.